Artlist.io.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us for episode number 3 of the Dota 2 recap show. This is the final episode of Dreamleague Season 19. It's been a fairly long tournament for a lot of those teams. I think it was, like 2 weeks long for a lot of these teams to be over in Europe, and then they've got the major after this as well. So there's going to be a lot of Dota on the board for a lot of these teams. There's going to be a lot of Dota for us to enjoy as well. I've got my two fine gentlemen by my side once again, Danog and Aries. Boys, how are we feeling on this wonderful Monday afternoon?
Would you like to start, Matt? I feel like you've had a more interesting night.
What, not sleeping? Yeah, had a great night, and then I've been out all day doing other stuff, and I've got my nondescript energy drink here with me, so that's keeping me firing.
Nondescript until we get sponsors of the show. How about that?
True. Wait, I need it. How do I drink this?
That's my favorite as well, by the way. That's my favorite flavor.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, doing well. How about you, Lockie? Zero sugar flavor.
Oh, okay. Damn, you balling now. That's actually really nice. Anyway, that's a side note. I'm chilling. Sleep schedule is a bit fucked from Europe, but we're okay. We adapt. We're doing good. We got games coming up later tonight. We got games to talk about. It's a good time.
Yeah,
Have you been playing any ranked?
All true.
No, I have not. I've not even played one game on the new patch.
What? You gotta get. He's been casting.
Oh,
Mr. Berlin has been casting some stuff.
Mr. Berlin, DPC, all the other fun shenanigans that you guys get up to and that Aries get up to without Danog. We'll talk about that a bit later about the pairing being broken up, but it might be a bit of a touchy subject. Either way, let's start with this episode, boys. Let's start talking about the end of Dreamleague Season 19. So after the first two group stages, we ended up with 4 teams remaining. Those 4 teams were Shopify Rebellion, Tundra Esports, Gaming Gladiators, as well as Team Liquid. I don't think many people would have expected anything less from those 4 teams. I think maybe people may have thought that either Shopify or Tundra may not have been there, considering they both had stand-ins towards the end of the tournament.
When you say people, do you mean you?
I would say majority of the Dota scene would have expected those 4 teams to be there.
I got 3 out of those 4 correct. All right, I don't want to hear it.
I was talking a bit of shit. To be fair, I talked a lot of. Was it like episode 1 or something like? Or episode 1? Or
you said
2?
like OG, Beast Coast, and EG were going to be there.
Yeah. Okay. I thought South America was going to have a big one, and unfortunately, they faltered at the end of group stage 2. But
also, I did as well. I think I said Liquid Gaming, Beast Coast, and EG, and South America very much disappointed me, so I guess I was wrong as well.
Winner again. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, but like you're always going for Western Europe. If you're always going for Western Europe, then
bro, Aries, you gotta back me up on this one. Am I a Western Europe simp? I don't think so.
No, he's very much not. No, okay, I'll back you up this time.
All right, well, we'll leave that be for now as we get into day 1 games for the playoffs. So it was basically like a double elimination bracket for 4 teams, but there was an extra round in the lower bracket semi-final where Shopify and Tundra played against each other, and those 2 teams starting in the lower bracket meant they didn't have the second life that everybody else had. So it was much
on a new patch,
on a brand new patch. What, they had like a day to watch? There was some Western Europe DPC games that happened.
They had to watch our CDPC cast. They had to watch our Western Europe cast. They got to enjoy our lovely flawed opinions on what the patch meta should be. It was great. I was honestly expecting a little more out of Tundra. I think for day 1, our predictions, I got them completely wrong. I said Tundra were going to win just because it's a new patch and they're a bunch of freaking nerds, and Gaming were going to win because of their amazing record against Liquid, and wrong for me. So, clearly new patch, anything can happen.
The Tundra game was very interesting though, because game 1 Shopify completely blew them out of the water.
That game 1 was I felt so bad for Tundra watching that, because it looked like Shopify Rebellion came into that series and knew exactly what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, and Tundra looked lost on the map. They had no idea what was going on. They got rolled over super hard.
They were like experimenting, of course, on the new patch as well. 9 played a Scythe mage, keep in mind, so like it's a bit more of an unconventional mid. Didn't know if it was going to work. Again, new patch, no one knew at that time, but yeah, it felt like Shopify just had a better understanding very early on. But this is kind of what we saw from the follow-up games, like Tundra adapted incredibly fast. Game 2 was just a completely different Tundra, and then Game 3 as well. I mean, that was we can get towards that as well in a couple of minutes, but it was just nice to see how much they learned from an absolute beatdown in 25 minutes in Game 1.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why Matt, you were going for Tundra, right? Is because they're very, very good at adapting, and a team that can find some niche things that are extremely broken. I'm surprised they didn't find how broken auras were straight away. Like, I think that's a big takeaway that I've seen from this entire playoffs and even some of the major games that we've been able to look at is auras are absolutely busted. And I guess, it being day one, this is like the highest ranked teams that we've seen play on this match. Obviously, there was some Div 2 games that happened and they were experimenting a little bit, but I'm surprised that Tundra didn't just fall back on the age-old of let's just get a lot of this damage reduction and just have these tanky heroes and just force the map that way.
Maybe they just didn't want to show stuff going into the major because, spoiler alert, they're doing pretty well in the major so far. So, again, playing the long game might be the strategy for them. And remember, they were playing with Aramis, not Saxa as well at this stage. So, again, how much of that factored into everything?
Yeah, and obviously Shopify, they still had Mikey in that roster as well, who played an amazing tournament throughout the rest of it. We'll get to some of their series as well. But yeah, capping out that final game, that 60-minute game, that was an insane performance from, I think, a lot of the different players. There was some really, really sick plays. I remember, going back and watching that game, there was some massive black holes coming in from Saberlight. I think he started the game and it was pretty rough for him on the Enigma. Yeah. There has been a lot of games recently where we've been seeing Enigmas just really struggle to get a lot of those good black holes off. And I think when you do see a big black hole come off, it really does show that some of these players have these kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? These innate
clutch moments.
Yeah, like these clutch moments, like these ways of being able to find like these insanely skilled core players clumped together for half a moment and being able to catch them together, and that's exactly what he did. And I think being able
according to the panel, unless you're sacred though, man, they just roasted him every opportunity they could get. Like Grandmaster, but he does not play like a Grandmaster. I'm like, man, he's out of the tournament already. Give him a break. Yeah. Jeez.
It is always rough when you see a player who plays a hero that you think that they've played a lot of, and then they just have some bad performances, and you're like, maybe not so much anymore. But that Enigma performance really did pull that game back for Shopify because it was really starting to get a bit spooky for them. And once you start getting late game against this Muerta hero, like I've seen multiple different pub games, multiple different pro games now where she hits like that 40-50 minute mark, and I feel like she does like the most damage in the game as a late game carry.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, that was a nice little test though to see how this person scales and how it's going to be able to shape up, right? Because I mean, we got to see the TB Muerta a couple other times, I think, in the playoffs as well. So that was we had multiple rapier drops. Yeah, there wasn't just one or two. I mean, that was quite the 60-minute thriller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think RTZ ended with 2 rapiers in his inventory.
Yep.
This was pre mini patch as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there were other things where. In that mini patch, like a lot of shit got buffed, except for like 3 heroes which got nerfed: PL, Ricky, and one other hero, I forget which.
Yeah, so this was pure raw 7.33, and I think both these two teams showed us some interesting stuff, showed us some cool stuff. I love to see that we're getting techies again. I think the change from his blast off going from an AoE silence into an AoE stun has really moved that hero into a good spot for a lot of these techies players, and I'd imagine that we're going to be seeing it a whole lot more. A lot of people are talking about the Ags being extremely boss. I don't know.
Minefield.
I don't know if we saw it in that series at all, but I feel like it is a pretty strong ability to be able to combine with some of these other heroes that keep people locked in a certain area, but still allow them to move around. So maybe that's something that teams experiment with. But it was good for Tundra to be able to bring Aramis onto a hero like that he's shown some prowess on in the past.
I've seen Cap's Instagram story or his Twitter feed or something like that, and he's just laughing like an absolute psychopath playing techies, watching people walk into his minefield and everyone explodes. So, it takes a certain type of person to play techies.
Oh, dude, it's honestly my most favorite position 4 to play right now.
I was just going to say, the games I've been watching lately makes me want to play techies. This hero actually seems super enjoyable, and there's some heroes in particular that as soon as they're picked, I cringe because I have to cast the game when I have this hero in it, like Arc Warden and like old techies. Yeah, just a couple, but this techies now, I don't care if it gets first phase. It's fun. It's actually fun to watch, and they can do some exciting shit now.
Interactive Dota is what you want to watch, not arc warden sit back and split push constantly, or maybe you walk into mines so you can't even walk anywhere, so you're so scared to do anything. Same sort of thing with like the new Nyx. Hate it. Like anything that can just 100 to 0 people is not good in my eyes. It just takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, it's like one shots are definitely not an enjoyable part, and I feel like that's why I don't really enjoy playing against PA as much anymore. Just because I feel like her with her ag shard and the way that the hero just scales with damage is kind of insane. That she just jumps on your backline and one hits them with uses a fan of knives and then just crits somebody and they get one shot. I don't think one shots are enjoyable for almost any game that you play. So I'm glad that those have moved away and maybe Nyx might get changed in the future, but. Yeah, you guys have something to say before we move on?
No, I just hope so. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, 100%. Especially Matt being a support player. Me, not so much playing I've literally just played Underlord, by the way, on this patch. Like, I'm just.
How's it been working out for you?
Oh, so much free MMR, dude. I think I'm like 14-2 with the hero or something like that. Like the hero is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. So that's definitely something we're going to be talking about a little bit later on when we get in towards the major for the next episode. But with this, that is Shopify and Tundra went 2-1 towards Shopify, so they're able to move forward in that lower bracket. They still only have one life left in the tournament, so they have to play their best. So now we're going to be going in towards this upper bracket final between Team Liquid and Gaming Gladiators, which I think this matchup itself over the past couple of months have definitely turned into a little bit of an El Clasico for Western Europe fans, just because Team Liquid and Gaming have been two insane teams. Obviously, at the Lima Major, they played really, really well, and they got all the way up to a grand final again against each other. So going into this series, the fact that it's a brand new patch, I don't want to say it put them back on even footing, but it just made it that much more of a tastier series to watch, because you got to watch arguably two of the best teams in the world go head-to-head after they've played a whole lot on a previous patch against each other, now in a brand new scenario where both of them have a second life, so they could have tried some stuff. They could have done completely wacky stuff, but both of them, I don't think there was anything really too far out of norm for either of the
If you're picking a win ranger, you deserve the loss. I think. Nah, it's not a hero. Way too single target, way too narrow. And I mean, Liquid just picked Chen twice, and Chen, I think, is one of the top 5 heroes of this patch. Like auras. You get a crap ton of farm. You're laning solid. Pushing, I think, is pretty valuable just because of how much it opens up the map. So mid lane really not worth that much. But when's a Chen really going to be mid? He wants to be in the side lanes. That's where all the creep camps are.
Yeah, I mean that was at the end, your KDA, you have a Monkey King, Nisha's Monkey, 18-0, and then we never really see value out of Sky, and Boxy went 17-3 as well. So, I mean, that just says that they had some monster performances in that game one.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of just more so that they had, much better heroes at having these good performances, and they're able to play that really well. And I think they showed a lot of their lane dominance in that game as well. The fact that Nisha has been one of these players that has kind of dominated a lot of lanes, but Quinn has been his kryptonite for a long time, and that's something that we're going to be seeing a little bit more as we move forward in this tournament and even in the major as well. So game number 1, 35 minutes, and game number 2, though, a 76-minute banger. Like this game was insane. That it was crazy the amount of times that it felt like Liquid were ahead, and then Gaming were ahead, and then Liquid were ahead. It just felt like they were kind of trading team fights back and forth with each other, and inevitably, as you got towards the late game, Werta was able to outcarry a TA and a TB.
Oh, dude, it's this fucking game where Zai rushed a boot to travel 2, right? Yeah. This is the one. Yeah, I don't know. How do you lose this game? That seems unlosable.
What were they up? Like 23k net worth or something?
I'm checking now. It was just something stupid.
I mean, you just let them work to get into late game TB. That's how you lose the game.
Yeah, but at 15 minutes, you had an 8,000 net worth lead. You go boot to travel 2 here on Zai. It was like 1 and 5 in the lane.
You're trying to make excuses for Liquid. How are they doing it? And this was bugged Muerta as well, remember? Where even if you pop BKB, the Gunslinger was still doing damage, full damage through the spell immunity. So, I doubt the teams knew that, but it was a thing.
I mean, we've seen now with that change to Muerta, this hero's kind of fallen off a lot. Like I thought heading into the major it was going to be a really strong carry, but not to be. At least we got to see the hero have some, OS Frogs moments. I mean, 44 minutes in, there was like a rampage at the tier 1, the remnants of the tier 1 mid tower, where it was
he was
just
on like 200 health, right?
Yeah, it was just That's the new hero, and I mean, it feels like you get in that occasion multiple times when a new hero comes out.
100%, and I think the way that she's starting to lean now in the meta, she's probably much more of like a counter carry to a lot of these other carry heroes that may be coming into the meta. If they do get picked up early on in the draft, you can kind of counter them with a Muerta. She is still seeing a few of these bans, but this was definitely an OS frog. I'm surprised that I don't want to say that I'm surprised that they stayed in the game the way they did, but the fact that it's game 2, you're 1 game up, and Liquid was still fighting like it was like the end of their lives kind of deal. I think it just showed that these guys have a lot of competitive drive in and of themselves, and like getting into the grand final. I don't think getting in the grand final first matters all too much, except for the fact that you didn't have to play like 2 series back to back. But if anything, on a brand new patch, you probably wanted to see more, right? So maybe, I don't know, this is some weird...
The longer you play, the better feel you get,
I guess so. And it's like, maybe if they lost that game and they went towards a game number 3 and then they were able to learn a few more things, maybe things might have changed in the grand final. Maybe things might have changed in the major as well. Who really knows? I think it's all just kind of hearsay at this point. But I like the fact that these teams are still pushing it all the way to the edge for like 60-minute games, 70-minute games, because that's all we saw in Div 2 with like 60-plus minute games every single game.
Yeah, your series was like 3 60-minute games, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, they sucked. They sucked really bad. And it was like the worst
I got up the next day and you were still going.
Yeah, the worst part was it was like 30 minutes of nothing. It was just people were just vibing out, didn't really know how to close the game.
Why not? There's all this map to farm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different story in and of itself. So Liquid got the 2-over game, and that was they had a massive streak going into that series, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was like
8-0 series wise or something like that.
Yeah, and they hadn't dropped a map in a very long time to Team Liquid.
Time.
Yeah,
since before the Lima Major.
So that's pretty important for Liquid to get, that kind of monkey off their back for a little bit to be able to take down a team like Gaimin, who has kind of been the dominant force for a long time.
I do want to stick on this game for a little bit as well. Yep. We had a very interesting build from the Void Spirit as well. Nisha going Echo Halberd into, I think there was a Silver's Edge somewhere in that as well. Deso? But really, yeah, I think it was like Treads, Echo, Halberd, Deso, Silver's Edge. And
now everyone's
doing it. I mean, there's 2 builds that we're getting out of it, right? It's either that or it's the spell damage. It's kind of the Dagon Interceptor. And that was just a nice little... we got to really see the potential of this hero, because looking over the patch, I didn't really think it got changed too much, but it just showcases these universal heroes. There's still a lot yet to be worked out on, their true strength on really the proper item build as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, I'm having a look back at his build, and I'm surprised. So we touched on the fact that there's like these 2 kind of predominant builds that are floating around. I know one of them is like the double bracer in the Dagon build, which is like the much more magic focused build, but I personally preferred this like Echo Saber a whole lot more, just because it feels like it gives you that extra survivability. And like this hero being a universal hero and then coming into with like an Echo Saber, he's like insanely hard to kill, especially if you only have a lot of physical damage. Like you're going into a TA, right? And so you've got Resonant Pulse and you've got HP, and you're going up against a TB as well as a TA. So like if you join any of these fights early, you're such a tanky hero that once you get into the backlines, even if you like kind of mess up a little bit, they're gonna have so much extra disable just to try and deal with you, and then that just means that you've got like a Muerta who's actually dealing damage in a fight. Your offlane is able to do some stuff, and I think it just enables these spirit heroes specifically to be able to just kind of be tanky and be annoying in these fights, but still deal a boatload of damage.
And you can do damage pretty quickly as well. So you oftentimes get around a lot of these big aura buys that people are going for. Like even a Crimson Guard against a Void Spirit that's going all these like massive high burst damage. You just whatever you call it, astral step it like multiple times, and then you're just gonna blow people up right before they even either have a chance to react, or even if they do, you're blocking like 70 damage or something like that. That's nothing.
Yeah, I think we're seeing as well the other spirit hero, the Storm. Like it's Falcon Blade is pretty much a must now on this hero, just because the soul health that it gives you early on just to help you tank up. And it's very similar to your point, Luke, where you just said about the Void Spirit Worker. It can kind of cover some of your mistakes, because it's a hero where sometimes you can overcommit, and all of a sudden, because we're not really seeing any levels into Simulate, so you don't really have a lot of mobility with that tool as well. So just having the extra stats can be really vital to surviving some of the fights. So I think it's the better build. From what I've seen, the games I've seen, I've been a lot more convinced by the Treads Echo kind of build instead of the Dagon. But I still don't really know when you want to go either build.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to figure out when one's better than the other. I don't know where I sit with Dagon yet. Same with like an item like Phylactery. I've been seeing them creep a little bit more into some games and stuff like that, and I have seen the value out of both those items, but I'm just not 100% sold on them where you're supposed to fit them into a build. I think Dagon specifically is like, do you go Dagon if you're like super far ahead on something like a Park or like a Void Spirit, or is it much more better for you to just get these extra bit of survivability items that still provide? I'd imagine the damage breakdowns are very similar. I think the one positive for Dagon is the spell lifesteal. The fact that it just gives you innate spell lifesteal and it gets better as you level it up as well is kind of crazy.
And it gets increased by the Kaya Sanj as well.
Yeah.
So that also helps. I mean, the other thing as well is, like you mentioned before, it's a universal hero now, right? So the previous item progression, which was maybe into like a Witchblade, which again scales off your intelligence, really not as value anymore because you might not be looking to itemize into int quite as much. So we'll see. I'm keen to see. I'm always a fan of like not just some cookie cutter build that you're going to go every single time. That's why I hate smokes pre 0 minutes, right? Because everyone has to do it. Because if you're not, you're already behind the 8 ball, right? So just take it away, keep people on the level playing field, and make them have to think of something else.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to be able to have a whole lot of viability, and I think it allows you that extra bit of expression from a lot of the players as well to be able to have them not have to go this straightforward kind of build. That's why, I mean, the meta right now that we're seeing in the Major, you can probably feel from some of the offlaners where they're getting a little annoyed of having to build Crimson Guard and Pipe every game. But for a lot of these other mid laners and a lot of these universal heroes, I think it is kind of cool that you can go a lot of these different paths depending on what your team needs, how you need to, and how you're progressing throughout the game. So
I want to
super cool.
I want to have a quick look at the Major like matches and just to see like win rates when it's not a strength offlaner being picked, because I feel like it would be much lower because you really want that Crimson Guard coming through.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be pretty interesting, pretty important, and I think that's something that I'm not quite sure if you felt it in your games, Matt, but like in a lot of my ranked games, if I've played a shitload of Underlord, like an absolute shitload of it, and if I'm not playing Underlord, it feels like I need to ruffle stop my lane so hard that the enemy carry can't even get to any of their items. So I don't need to go Crimson Guard, right? Because otherwise it gets to the point where you get into the mid game, a lot of your cores have been dying, and you're like, I kind of need Crimson Pipe this game. And then it feels like no matter what hero you were on, you have to kind of build those items to at least mitigate the damage.
I mean, I'm just picking the same items regardless of if I pick in CM, Clockwork, or Venomancer. Just give me any of those three and I'm good to go, boys. You get the Boots of Berry, you get the 4 stuff, you might get maybe a Glimmer Cape here and there.
What about a Pavise?
Nah, fuck it.
You're not a Pavise fanboy?
That item looks really good.
Pavise is broken.
It's good, but I mean, too much effort.
Oh, come on, dude. It's like, you're talking about giving me the same stuff over and over again. That's Pavise in a nutshell. It's just build Pavise and you should be fine. So
no, he just wants auras where he does it. It's just a mindless thing. You just click it. You click it. You don't have to worry about it. See, for Matt, he has to focus on who to use the Pavise on. Yeah, drums go brr. I run in. I control. I do my job. We out.
He's just bongo booting. He hook shots in and hands off keyboard, baby. He's like,
no, I jetpack out and then hands off keyboard.
There we go. Flies out in style. That's the true way to do it.
Jesus Christ.
Haunting all the while.
Jesus Christ.
The win rate, though, it's up there.
I mean, that is... I feel like a lot of people have had pretty good win rates. I've been copying my Force 50s, which is a little annoying, but is what it is. I'll complain about that later. So... that was Team Liquid versus Gaming Gladiators, 2-0 for Team Liquid. So they got the big monkey off their back with Gaming Gladiators going bye-bye. So that means that they're going to be sitting and waiting in the grand final for day number 2. So day number 1 was done, and I think it was a pretty long day considering it was almost a full best of 3 from Shopify and Tundra, and then it was a 76-minute game to finish it out from Liquid. I don't think we saw anything crazy from any of the 4 teams. I'm surprised that there was only really one Alchemist pick throughout the 5 games that we saw. That hero is absolutely a mega bonkers right now. And I thought, specifically Shopify, I thought they would play it a lot more.
At this event, you're saying? Because they've been playing a lot since then.
Yeah. At Dreamleague, I mean, maybe a lot of the stuff...
They just didn't know yet. You know?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, no one knew, it looks like. I don't see any other Alchemist games even in the grand finals.
Now Deuce is kind of busted as well.
Yeah, very true. I wasn't quite sure where I sat with that hero, to be perfectly honest, and I think I've settled on fuck that hero. Please nerf the shit out of it, Ice Frog. I don't want to.
I mean, she got like 4 separate big buffs in the mini patch, so it's like,
that's a big
you can
thing.
take one away.
Yeah. So that was day number 1. There was some very, very interesting games. Now going into day number 2, which is the final day of competition. There was a little bit of time for these teams to go over some of the replays and try and figure out what they wanted to do and how they wanted to go into it. Gaming Gladiators versus Shopify Rebellion. That was pretty straightforward series, I would have to say, for Gaming Gladiators. They didn't really get pushed too much. There wasn't too many issues that they had, and I think in a lot of the drafts, Gaming just kind of had Shopify's number. I don't think there was, out of the 2 drafts that I'm seeing right now, where I'm like, maybe that hero could have done a little better.
Didn't hate Shopify's game 1 draft.
I'm not saying that I hate it. I just feel like that there was just some good responses from Gaming, right? Where I think they've proven a lot that they're a very, very strong team and they're hard to beat in like a macro team fight kind of sense, that I feel like you need to shut down some of their big core lanes super hardcore to be able to, give yourself a good shout in the mid game.
Good luck. I don't know, dude. Ace is the best offlaner right now. This guy is supposed to lose off lanes and he doesn't.
Against Saber Chad?
Now.
Come on,
dude.
bro.
I don't understand. This man is just so goddamn consistent. He'll have a losing matchup and somehow get more out of it than what he should. I really think if you're trying to learn offlane, you watch this guy. He's by far the best right now. It's just, it's amazing, dude. He transitioned from a 1 to a 3 and is having this much success. He's like probably their most valuable player, I think, on the team right now.
Yeah, I could get behind that.
When I was casting him with you, Luke, during ESL 1 Germany, I want to say.
Yeah, that was
where
years ago.
He forgot the Aegis. He forgot the Aegis on Spectre like 3 years ago.
I still have that meme somewhere, actually.
I'd made a prediction or a bet or something like that, and I was losing it in the green room because no one else had picked the team at the time, and I was like, no, Ace. But so I'm glad that he's had his redemption now, and he's in a really good spot.
Yeah, he's definitely impressing, and even in that game one, he had a 16-minute heart, by the way, on Centaur.
That's against,
right. What was it? A Morphling Chen lane. So, like, he was a big boy. He was a very, very big boy. To be fair, I think the way that Tofu enables his lane is really good. They get themselves into a spot where Ace is on parity, or if not ahead in some of those matchups that maybe he shouldn't be, and then Tofu makes a rotation, and that kind of draws a lot of the attention away from Ace's lane. He just kind of toils away until he needs to get himself back involved into a game, and then that's how he's able to impress a lot of people in the offline, I think. So, yeah, that game number 1, I mean, you had a 12-minute battle for Hero and Duraccio. He went 12-0-5. Ace had a 16-minute heart. Like,
you can't give Celery Enchantress as well. I think he's way too good on the hero.
Yeah. Yep. And
I'd be banning Ench IO against them if I'm their opponents.
They have such a strategic advantage because, like you just said, if you want to ban Enchantress IO, then it leaves Chen in the pool. And then now we even know there's some other broken heroes right now that need to be first phase banned. So just the fact that Celery requires you to ban 3 of the best supports right now opens up their draft so much.
Yeah, I think Celery has been one of those players that has been that very strong position 5 player that I think he has a very healthy pool of heroes for a long time. But now he's got his like 3 big heroes that are very strong in the meta that it makes it very, very hard to deal with game. But yeah, that first game was pretty straightforward. It was basically all the way from game, and they didn't lose. They lost a single tower throughout that entire game, and
very nice guy as well.
And unfortunately for Crit, he just didn't get involved on that position 4 Ricky. It was too hard for him to gank any of the cores, and obviously with the dart going away, it's a little harder for you to just kind of get to this 15-minute mark, get the dart, and be able to set up with some of your heroes. So it does feel like this pos 4 Ricky could be dead in the water. So a little bit of experimentation from Shopify. But I mean, core Ricky is still pretty fucked up in pubs right now.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And then game number 2, I liked some of the ideas that Shopify were coming in with, but then you kind of just got this Uno reverse card where Ace played an off-lane lone druid, Duraccio played a bristleback, and Quinn was on his famous Leshrac with an IO combination. Yeah. That this anime just didn't have a game.
It's over.
Like, obviously you pick AM into the IO Leshrac combo, but you just get lone druid, and then you're like, well, game's over.
I mean, this was when he was playing on Ninjas in Pajamas. This was like Ace's signature hero when he was playing in that position 1 role. So for him to now still be able to pick it up in that position 3 role, it really punishes these drafts that are like, all right, we're going to take it late, blah, 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 blah. But he's like, well, okay, you don't have any damage to kill A, the Bristle, and B, the Lone Druid Bear. So good luck. And then you're also having to deal with this IO as well. It was basically, it felt unlosable, this draft to me, to be honest, from Gaiman. They just completely outdrafted Shopify.
Yeah, you have 2 side lanes that have a better matchup, right? It's your favorite matchup, the Bristleback versus the Enigma, Danok. I mean, that was one of the biggest answers we saw when the Enigma was really popular, like even going back to the Stockholm Major. And then in lane, you want a bunch of passives to be able to deal with the anti-mage people who don't care about your mana and of course the druid. So I don't know, you just you draft strong lanes and game gets pretty easy after that.
Yeah, especially from what we saw in game number 1. I think their laning prowess is very up there for Game and Gladiator. So that was a pretty swift 2-0, both 30-minute games for Game and Gladiator, and they do bow out. Well, actually, no, Game and stay in. Shopify bow out of the tournament. It was a little unfortunate from them, but at the end of the day, getting top 3 with a stand-in in a tournament like this, when a brand new patch gets dropped on you, a few days beforehand, heading into the major, I think Shopify are definitely happy with how that ended up, especially for Mikey to get a lot of that experience, and then going into the major, welcoming back Arbed is going to be very, very nice for Shopify Rebellion. So, it is grand final time. Now, this is what I was very excited about. Game and Gladiators versus Team Liquid, full best of 5 grand finals.
I think we all predicted this would be the grand final, right?
Yes, I think so.
But only one of us predicted the correct winner.
Very true. Very, very true. I'm a little disappointed in this one. But anyways, we'll talk about this. So, full 5-game series between Team Liquid and Gaming Gladiators. This was going to be a very interesting test for both these two teams to see what they had learned against their previous series, to see whether or not a few more of these heroes had started floating around, or whether or not they had changed their ideas, or what was going to happen. So game number 1, boys, 52-minute banger between these guys. It was kind of crazy game to be having a look at. I'm just going to bring up the Dota bar for myself so I can have a quick look at it. I believe this was a game that looked like it was pretty even for a lot of it. Like, even the net worth is like only a couple of thousand gold in it until around about the 30-minute mark, where there was this big team fight that unfortunately Team Liquid did lose. And then Gaming Gladiators ran away with the game from there on out and proved, I think, this Slark hero is very, very strong right now.
Also, I'm pretty sure Radiant won every single game in this series.
Yes, they did.
Huh. Very interesting. Which
have you had any discussions about that during like Berlin with any of the casters and all that, Lockie? Because I think the map is pretty symmetrical. I can't really see anything big that stands out except maybe the very top and bottom camps.
At least in the stats, it seems to be that's exactly the case as well. Knoxville released one on, I think, at the end of day 2 of the group stages, and it was
second pick is the most favorable, right?
All I remember is that Radiant and Dire was only a 1 win-loss difference, so it's pretty much dead even. And then and second pick I think had 6 or 7 more over first pick, but. In regard, I don't know if it's any different now with the group stages done, but from what I saw, there was just no advantage from Radiant or Dire, at least from what I saw, though.
But in this final series, Dire only won 3 games out of a grand total of, 5, 7, 9,
Wait,
12.
what?
Dire only won 3 of the games out of the 12 in Dreamleague. In the
playoffs. Okay, yep.
So it was 9-3, so it was 66-33.
Damn. That's I wonder why it's so lopsided in Dreamleague then compared to what's going on at the major now.
Is it a lot about, like, maybe it was just the safe lane was a lot easier to pull? I feel like when I first started playing the game, I think playing Radiant just felt a lot nicer. Being Radiant offlaner and Radiant safe laner just felt better. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this, but it's the idea of, because Radiant is in when you're going from bottom to top, then it's just much more natural for a lot of players to be able to play that way than going from top to bottom. So that's why Radiant will tend to have a better win rate, whether or not the map is perfectly symmetrical. So it could just be that.
Me, personally, like, unless I'm like clicking the mini map because I've got terrible hand control, but like other than that, I don't know. I never really subscribed to that. I think it's just. It could have just been coincidence as well. Like you
Just
said,
get
Lockie,
good.
during the major, it's basically evened out. So I think pick order is much more important. Second pick is as important as it's ever been.
That's something that a lot of people haven't talked about in a long time. Do we feel like it's time to change up the pick order again?
Yeah. Because why not? Just throw something new in there, you know? Spice it up.
What do you think? Do we want extra bands? Do we need a
just
change
make one
in the
team
order?
pick their entire draft first. You have to respond.
That would be terrible.
I think I'm fine with how many bands there are, because I've noticed like you can get to the very last phase and feel like nothing is going to be good. Yeah. So I don't think I think if you add an extra band, that makes it even more difficult, which I wouldn't enjoy, because it takes the advantage away from second pick. So I at least if they change anything, I'd like it to keep the same amount of bands right now. And honestly, I don't care what you do. Like if you change first pick, second pick with who gets last overall, I don't really care. Like 15th, 16th, whatever. Just like Matt said, just change it up. But I'd be happy if the bands stay the same.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like if you changed so second pick got the double pick in the first and second phase, but they didn't get the last overall, I think that would be a good change. To be able to, first pick goes 5th and then 8th.
No, that makes first
that'd be horrible. Yeah, no. You can't do that. You can't do that.
You're a first pick enjoyer.
Yeah, they would get everything. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah,
I think maybe you could give them first pick could get the advantage in the second phase, and I think it would even things out a little bit.
Yeah, so you just flip second pick and first pick advantage like that. So it's like double pick for first pick. Or no.
This is a lot of picks.
Double pick on, what would it be? You get 16, 17 on second pick instead of on first pick. Yes.
Let's just say sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of picks right now. I'm trying to remember. Regardless, I'm kind of okay with them not changing the draft order with the big patch they just released, because it was a fucking huge patch. So that would have also added a complete another layer of complexity. Maybe just do it. I'm sure no one is complaining. Draft did not change with everything we just got. Let people ease into it, and then in a month time, 2 months, whatever, then you can go for the draft change. I'd be fine with that.
So we're thinking much more towards TI, after,
maybe after Bali.
Yeah, I was going to say after Bali or maybe just before Bali. I don't know how long it's going to take for this patch to settle down, because as we said,
during Bali, if these patches are anything to go by.
The patch is so huge that I think it's going to take so long for it to settle down, especially if we're going to get letter iterations that from here until the end of Bali. It's going to take a long time for it to settle.
My God, does this feel like an Ice Frog patch though, and I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Okay, I love how because I was actually going to just go to that point as well. It really does feel like Ice Frog is back. So when he is still around and working with Dota, it felt like the patches were a more regular thing, and that could just continue to happen. So I feel like look out, who the fuck knows what's going to happen over the next coming months. This meta could just be completely different, and you might drop another huge patch just before the Bali major. Why not? Say you guys, you've been begging for a patch for multiple years now. Let's give you a couple now before all the majors in this DPC.
It's not Dreamleague, but this is a relevant point. Berlin major related, Lockie, you were talking about Tundra with meta. What were their picks again? Was it Offlane Medusa Pos for Slark or something like that they were going?
I think we'll go into a little bit more detail about predictions later and who we think we're going to win, but I'll just get out the hat. I think Tundra will be in the grand finals. This is a fucking scary team right now. And I think they learned a lot from Dreamleague playoffs, even only playing that one series against Shopify. Again, what we kind of said earlier, that the game one where they lost in 25 minutes, but then game 2 and game 3 went 55 plus. This team learns really fast. They soak in all the information at such a rapid rate, and that's proving to be the case of the major as well.
Yeah, and I think they play a lot of pubs as well, and they watch a lot of stuff. So those guys will be able to get everything. So let's get into this grand final. Let's chew through this so we can get through these final topics, and then we can start talking about the major in the next episode as well. So full 5-game series, game number 1, 52-minute game where Gaming Gladiators were able to eke out the dub, proving that the Slark is, I think, a pretty strong hero in the patch right now. I don't think he had an amazing performance. I think Ace was really the kind of big performer for them in that game, going 10-4 and 13 on his Doom. But
that's who I wanted to highlight as well. He completely nullified the Nisha Timber, who also went for it was a very interesting build. He went Ags and then into Dagon afterwards as well. So I think that's another universal hero who his item build just hasn't been worked out just yet. But Nisha did nothing through their mid to late game fights because Ace.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're seeing a whole boatload of Doom still. I think this hero is going to be around for a long time. Game number 2, though, I think Liquids kind of have figured out one of their very strong heroes of the patch right now in this Sven. This is something that Mike has been playing a decent amount of, and the way that he farms and joins a lot of these fights is very, very important for Liquid, because they give Zai one of these heroes that he's able to build a lot of these auras on. They just give Nisha this kind of annoying hero, I want to say. Like, sometimes he's on his carries, but sometimes he's on these annoying heroes. In this game number 2, he's playing a Necro. And then you just allow Mike to be able to come into these fights, where he's able to initiate second. He's able to find some of these backlines, be able to find some of these important heroes and blow them up.
Yep. I think that game was all set up, though, off the back of some of the early rotations from Boxy. He rotated mid around 6 minutes to get a kill into Quinn, and then he went top as well and got a huge kill into Durachio with the help of Zai. And those 2 early kills just helped secure the lanes, and they never look back from there. It's another game where we got to see the value out of the Fiend's Gate, and once you have this net worth lead, it's just very easy to close out the map. As soon as you see someone on division, you can just it's a better relocate. You go in multiple heroes, and you don't even need to die on the way out as well. I mean, that's another thing where IOs would always kind of feed their life sometimes with a relocate. So this is I think Boxy set their early game up incredibly well from those couple of rotations.
Yep. So that was a pretty good showing there from Liquid. And I think, again, it's kind of crazy that both these two teams have been going like hammer and tongs against each other for such a long time. But you can still have games like these where Liquid are able to just kind of outlane them super hard and kind of figure out exactly what they need to do and how they need to play that game. And game number 3 was another long-distance affair between both these two teams. The Slark was contested this time around coming in from Liquid. They wanted to make sure that they were running that into the Muerta, which eventually got final picked by Gaming Gladiators. So it seems like Gaming want to play the Muerta into the Slark. I'm not sure how that interaction really goes, because I feel like Depth Shroud as well as Shadow Dance can really screw with her super hard in a lot of these fights where, like, you want to pop Pierce the Veil and get kills, right? But
maybe you just save the dead shot, for when they're trying to run at you. Or I don't know. I don't know how you approach these fights, but I guess with the Muerta as well, you can be a little hard to get on top of, right? Like, they had plenty of barriers for Slark to not get there. They had a Disruptor, they had a Puck, they had an Underlord. So if Slark gets on top of you, it just run away, basically. Wait for him to pop all of his cooldowns before you pop yours, essentially.
This isn't just game 3, though. This game goes by a different name. This is the Holy Locket game.
Oh, this is the Holy Locket game. I forgot about that.
So, there's a little bit of an incident that we need to speak about. Poor old Insania. I don't know what's going on with this guy. It just keeps happening to him, unfortunately. I mean, it's just... I'm watching this game was so frustrating, dude. How can you drop an item and not notice for like 10 minutes, and then you queue the item up? He wanted to buy another one. He didn't know what happened to it. He's like, let's just buy another one. And then 10 minutes later, he finds a Holy Locket. And who knows, as soon as he dropped it as well, the fight started to look really bad without that extra little bit of heal. Who knows if that was, if it was like 1%, maybe it was a big reason, maybe it wasn't, but it was just funny. The fights started to look a little bit rough. Yeah, the mental damage.
Yeah, that's... I don't know. Like, how does that... Like, surely it has to just be one of those things where they're coming into this game number 3. They won game number 1 quite handily. They're in a pretty strong position. he's probably thinking about like a million different things, right? Like you're thinking
What's
about
for dinner.
you're thinking about like how you need to play the rest of the game, how you need to kind of close this map out because you're going up against a Muerta. You want to make sure that you don't go super late game against her. Like you have an offlane Ricky, a Pangu as your mid, and a Slark. Like the Pangu's not going to be able to scale that deep into her, and you need to make sure that this game is not going too far. And I mean, man, like that's. I feel sorry for this guy, but like the good thing about Insania is he trolls himself as well. Like whenever anybody talks about it, he always like is the first person to kind of troll himself and talk a little bit of smack about himself. So yeah,
Well,
that's a bit rough for the poor fellow.
I mean, gaming almost fucking trolled that at the end of that game as well. There was a moment where they were used the Fiend's Gate to try and secure the Mega Creeps, where they jumped inside Liquid's base. Everyone went through the gate. And then they got the megas. They tried to rift back out, and then fucking Quinn's rift got cancelled by Bash, and then Duracho came back through the rift, and then he died, and he brought back the fight prior. So that was a dieback then for him to try and save the Lesh, and it was just a mess of a time for them trying to secure Mega Creep. Somehow they still won in the end, but they definitely almost choked.
You almost fumbled the bag. Anything you want to say about this one, Matt?
No, not really. Not about that game in particular. I do just want to say, I wonder how much of it was strategic in terms of like this is just genuinely what they thought would be the best draft for the situation. But having a look across all 5 of these games, there is a really big amount of hero variety across all of these, and I wonder how much of it was testing out new heroes on a new patch, which is kind of crazy considering it's like the qualification series to go to a $15 million tournament. I know you don't want to reveal too much before Berlin, but I would say that Liquid and Gaming are pretty secure for TI as well. So it's like, how much of it is reality where that's the sort of situation, right? Like there's no hero that's basically spammed on one side more than twice, I want to say. Like I see a couple of Disruptors, I see a couple of Pucks, I see a couple of Chens, but that's pretty much it. I guess Underlord is probably the most picked hero of this entire series.
Yeah, you got picked 3 times by Liquid.
And once by Gaming.
Yeah, so 4 games overall, and towards the later games as well, we started to see the priority getting increased. It was like second phase, and then the final game was the first phase pick from Liquid. So it's just that's always a nice thing about best of 5s. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this year is broken, like Luke just said as well. But this is a nice thing about best of 5s, and why I wish we had more of them is just because when you go the distance, you get to see the meta developed, and that series in particular, just an obvious one, was. In game 2, Underlord was last phase, and then all the way to game 5, it was first phase. So just that you already see the little priority changes inside. It's always nice with the best of 5 meta, the battle that goes on with the big brains.
I want to ask you guys a quick question just on Underlord. It's absolutely nothing to do with this series at all. There was no counterpick in regards to it, so sorry for derailing, Luke. But previously, Lockie, you know from casting with me that whenever I see a Medusa, I'm like, all right, I want to see high percent stuff, even if it's current percentage, right? Like your Zeus, your Underlord, your Phoenix, good against Dusa, because it's just, you're always going to be able to deal that high percent because you burn through the mana first before you get to the health, right?
Yeah.
You on board with me?
Yeah.
So how do you feel that Underlord into the Dusa match works now? Because if it's percent based on the Firestorm and you have basically 0 HP, are you just able to get so much more out of the lane? But then also you need to consider that you are a very heavy physical damage based hero and you've still got Atrophy Aura to have to deal with. So like, does it swing it more in one favor? I'm not so sure just yet, but I just, when initially saw like a Medusa pick in response to an Underlord, I'm like, maybe this is why. Because if you're dealing whatever it is, 4% max HP per second to someone that has 400 HP, that's fucking nothing, you know?
The thing is, the interaction with that, it basically does 0 damage to her most of the time.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, it does basically 0 damage because of that factor, but you are still heavily reducing physical damage through Atrophy Aura. So, like,
I think the one thing in Medusa's favor is where we've been seeing these builds change is she goes much more into plus damage rather than like full stats. I think the only thing coming out of the Medusa is like Skadi and Manta are like the 2 items that you see with her going stats where you go things like Daedalus, MKB, like you go a lot of these like plus damage kind of items. So and I think that might be what she's leaning towards now is because Atrophy Aura affects base damage rather than plus damage. So that could just be the interaction. The fact that Firestorm is dog shit against you now, Atrophy Aura, you just build plus damage items rather than stats, and you feel pretty good.
I think there's always going to be some value though with the Underlord versus the Deucer, just because. I mean, with how you were mentioning the Atrophy Aura, but you got to keep in mind he's a Crimson buyer, and also he's probably a Halberd buyer as well. Like, let's be real. So
as well for another hero that doesn't really want to be moving and shooting.
Yeah. So you can just play very aggressive, like early rotations with Rift. You just might be a lot. Your tempo might be too fast for the Deucer before you hit your 2 item timing. So, I mean, that's always a beautiful thing with Dota, though, right? Like every single individual matchup has, at different times of the game, you're favored, and then late game maybe you're not as favored. So that's always the nice thing. Makes it fun to be able to break down matchups.
Yeah, exactly, and I kind of want to get your ideas about this final draft as well, boys, because I think game number 2 that was it was kind of I don't say an interesting draft, but they kind of got run over, like pretty hardcore game and did in game number 4, and it was not close. It was 28 minutes stomp. Like Nisha did really well in his lane. Mickey popped off on the Sven once again. Zai had a very straightforward game. It was just another one of those scenarios where Liquid had good rotations around the map. They had good drafts and they had heroes they needed to. But on game number 5, and they got
they had Underlord.
In game number 5. Wait, do I have it up here somewhere?
Liquid had Underlord and lost.
Liquid had Underlord and lost, but the way that they drafted kind of annoyed me. Here
we go. Not so much of a fanboy anymore, are you?
At Blitz.
Yeah, it just felt like some of their bans were a little interesting. Like they banned Disruptor on 11 when a lot of their heroes really didn't care about it all too much. They went in for like a Coddle Bristleback, 2 heroes that do not care about being Static Storm, because I guess Coddle's never really going to be in the lane. And they leave the Slark open, and they have Underlord and Bristleback, 2 heroes that naturally as the game goes later, the Slark's going to feed off of. So I don't know about you guys. It just felt like that there was a lot of straightforward heroes that I was thinking that Gamer would have wanted to go for that Liquid just did not ban.
Was Slark at 18th?
Yes.
So
Hello? I think
we can't hear you.
You muted yourself.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Sorry. So I think this Slark versus Underlord Coddle matchup is a lot different than what people actually believe right now. At least from the games I'm seeing, you can just spam the Slark out of the lane. So maybe, even though the Slark count is a Bristleback, maybe they thought he was going to have too rough of a lane, and then you'd be able to make early rotations with the Coddle and Hoodwink and be able to blow him up. So I can kind of understand why they'd leave it in the pool. Maybe they just thought it was going to go a little bit differently with the side lane, and that Dyrachyo didn't have a free time.
Also, Quinn kind of popped off in this game as well, didn't he?
I mean, well,
granted, last pick TA into a Shadow Fiend, which that's pretty TA favored. A lot of heavy damage coming through. You make up for your short range, which got buffed, by the way. So again, little TA buff. Not that she needed it. To just harass an Agi hero with high armor out of the lane with the side blades. I mean, it was a really good TA pick.
And I think Celery did a really good job to enable Quinn this game as well, off the back of some early rotations, secured the water runes, secured the power runes like they always do. But it's also, I mean, this is a Quinn staple, right? The Templar Assassin, something that we don't really get to see him play anymore because it kind of fell out of popularity. But yeah, I think Celery did a huge job to be able to help secure those runes, and even got a couple early kills with high levels in Frostbite. So 100% agree. Quinn demolish this game, but I think the supports very much enabled him.
CM's a good hero, I'm telling
CM
you.
is a very good hero.
She's a good bongo boot buyer, and I think that's pretty massive.
And she gets a free Ags, which means that you move at that full movement speed while freezing fielding, which is pretty nutty.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So
I didn't think she would actually be a good shard carrier, because I know Matt, like when we were doing some of the early like China games and Southeast Asian games on the patch, like we were kind of both saying that it feels like it'd be nice to have a support that has good Aghanim shard, because it's like a guaranteed you're going to get this. And I didn't think CM would be one of them, but I'm starting to realize the true power of her.
I believed. Disruptor trash. Like, that's the one that I'm like, you probably don't want to give him 14.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Pretty much. You're just basically making your death timer longer for no benefit. So it's like, oh, great. Thanks, guys.
True.
The CM shard, dude, I don't know. I'm seeing this just absolutely clutch up in a lot of fights. So yeah, no, this hero is very strong.
Yeah, here it is very strong. So yeah, maybe I am putting a little bit too much stock into the Slark versus Underlord matchup, but that was something that little got my goat a little bit going in that game number 5. But either way, I think
to GG.
Yeah, congrats to GG. They won themselves Dreamleague. They got themselves a qualification to Riyadh Masters, which is a massive tournament for them. And I mean, a lot of the tournaments that they're winning so far, like they're going to be set up for a lot of their Dota careers. And I mean, if they have a good showing at TI, if they do well at Riyadh Masters, like it just means that these players, and specifically I think Quinn, I think it's a massive glow up from him. The fact that there was. I know he talked on his stream a lot about, him just having to stick to Dota because at the end of the day, what else is he really going to do? And he persevered. He got out of North America. He got himself into Western Europe, and now he's winning majors and winning massive tournaments as well for himself. So I think it's always heartwarming when I get to see players who wear their hearts on their sleeve a lot, especially when they stream. And then they came in and they take a big old risk to go to Gaming Gladiators, and they come out on top. And I mean, I'm excited to see what they do at Riyadh.
Such a genuinely nice guy as well is Quinn. Like a lot of people see his stream persona and think that is who the actual guy is, but he is. You couldn't meet too many nicer people in real life. I can only count maybe a couple on my hand, and no, it's not you two.
He's a fucking guy, man.
The fuck, dude? We're just I don't know.
Do you think you're nicer than Lyrical or Tret? I'll tell you. I'll ask you.
I mean, Lyrical is a fucking
that's what
wonderful
I thought.
man.
Yeah, that's what
a
teddy bear and a Canadian. Good luck.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll take that one. Okay. So, what do we think of the tournament as a whole? What do we feel about it? We talked about the tournament structure in episode 1. We talked about how some of the teams went. There was a fucking patch that got dropped halfway through it, which I think was sick, and I think the way they took that in their stride was super awesome. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is Western Europe is still extremely strong, and there's a lot of regions that are struggling. And there's only going to be, we only need to give them more experience in these international tournaments. I want to see more tier 3 tournaments. Please, for the love of fucking God, can we see some more of this stuff happening? I know that there's going to be another season of Dreamleague that's happening very, very soon. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see which teams get invited this time around, whether or not it's just going to be like Bali Major, 2 Electric Boogaloo, or whether or not we're going to be seeing, some different teams. Because that's basically what it was this time around. It was teams from the Major that got invited to Dream League, plus Nouns and Nigma and some of those other teams that were going towards the Major, and they just kind of gave them a tournament boot camp beforehand. So I want to see maybe some of these other teams be able to come in. I want to see more China teams, I think, is a big thing for me. I want to see China.
Redo Thunders or Quest Gaming, I think they're called now.
Well, with the Mar on the team now, so we'll see how that's going to look. But in regards to the structure of the event, I think I would... Now after, maybe it's just because I've heard some of the players' responses and they thought it was a very long event as a whole. So maybe the group stage, they only keep it with 1 group stage instead of 2, because it did feel like, I mean, you're playing, you can potentially get burnt out before the Major. And I don't know how I felt about the playoffs as well. I kind of wish there were a little bit more teams, halfway through groups 2. Yeah, it was so short. Halfway through groups 2, I'm like, oh shit, only 4 teams go through. It's kind of a, you kind of get blue balled a little bit. Yeah, exactly. I think 6 would have been fine. You still get double elimination. Exactly right. I think that would maybe be a better way to do it, because again, playoffs, that would just be maybe a day longer if you do 6 teams in, which is really not that much extra money overall. And there's more storylines. It's best of 3s. Playoffs are just always more hype. There's just you can't argue against that. So maybe that would just be the only thing. Maybe 2 extra teams in playoffs instead of 4.
I love the content pieces as well, especially the ones around the little challenges like eating licorice, or the piece of paper that was don't touch the blue with your hands, and everyone but Fog just immediately picked it up. It was oh, so what am I supposed to do with this? And Fog's grabbing it with his elbows, and I'm like, there's my guy, there's my tryhard. But I think it was a bit of a blessing in disguise when it came playoffs time. But up until that point, allocating, what was it, 3.5 hours for a lot of these series, and they were done in 2. And so there was some massive breaks that needed a lot of times to be filled. So I mean, that's the only other complaint that you would have to give, but it's something that fixed itself towards the end, because there were so many 60+ minute games that ended up going on that scheduling really wasn't an issue.
Yeah, and I think shout out to Shane to tweeting. I think it was like halfway through the event that they said for the final series of the day, if the previous series was fast, they could move it forward a certain amount of time. I understand why TOs do these hard start times, just because it means that you don't have issues with trying to find players on such short notice. If it's like, a 30-minute turnaround between one series ending and another series starting. So I do understand that. And yeah, I think that the talent did an amazing job at filling a lot of that time. Like, we've all been there. We have definitely been on desk and panels
drawn on
where,
paper plates.
Yeah, like, we've done some shit. We have done some shit just to entertain the masses, because everybody at the end of the day, they want to watch the Dota, but you need to make sure that people are staying in between the Dota, especially if you have like hour-long breaks. And I think the way they did it was super cool.
And the band, big shout outs to the band.
That band fucking slapped hard. I don't know if anybody else can pull it off. It could just be one of those things where it's like kind of a one and done. I think if you do it too many times, it can kind of get a bit repetitive. It's very hard to change it up every single time and be brand new. But the way the unnamed pandas played throughout the entire of this tournament was fucking awesome.
Just keep it a Dreamleague staple, I think. Yeah. And then people will know to look forward to it. Like the good studio house and the cat cam. It's just something that can be synonymous with it.
Very, very true. All right. I'll probably get rid of this. We won't do this final one because this episode's already gone for an hour and we've got another episode to record as well. So that is it. Dreamleague is done. The champions were Game and Gladiators. A lot of people did expect that as well. I think it was sick that we got to see the new patch. Would have loved to have seen a few more games on it before we got into 7.33b, but that is it. We are into the major already. We've already finished the first set of the group stages. First group stage is already done. There's not a second one. It's just going straight into playoffs. So we are going to be jumping right into episode 4 of the recap show. But this time around, we're going to be changing tournaments. We're going to be jumping into the Berlin Major. So thank you, everyone, once again for joining us for a wonderful time when it comes to the Dota 2 recap show. Thank you to these two fine gentlemen for sticking by my side and talking shit and talking us all through the Dota as well. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this episode here. Episode 4 is going to be up roughly about the same time that you guys are watching this as well. So if you want the back-to-back, you want to listen to us for another hour, you guys can definitely do so. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here. And as always, stay safe, and we'll see you guys for the next one.